There has been a bit of noise doing the rounds again, and you can feel the temperature rising among Rangers supporters as January edges closer, because whenever the window approaches, the conversation always turns to bodies, profiles, and whether the squad has the right balance to cope with what is coming. One name that has cropped up has certainly caught attention, not just because of the clubs he has been attached to before, but because he fits a very specific mold that this Rangers side has been crying out for. Pierre Ecua is being spoken about as a possible option, midfielder with a serious physical presence, the kind of player who does not shrink when games turn scrappy and the pitches get heavy. Anyone who has watched him closely knows he is not just a lump in the middle of the park. He can play, he can carry the ball, and he understands the rhythm of football in Britain, which matters a great deal in this league. What makes the situation intriguing and a bit messy, to be honest, is the uncertainty around his contractual status. He has been based in France, tied up with Saint-Étienne, but the circumstances around his move there, the relegation, and his refusal to feature at that level have left everything in a grey area. From the outside, it looks complicated, and it is fair to say Rangers would need to tread carefully. No club wants to be dragged into a legal tug-of-war, especially when they are trying to rebuild momentum and trust after a turbulent spell. At the same time, this is where smart negotiation and patience can make the difference, because if there is a route to bring in a player of that profile without overcommitting, it could be a calculated risk worth taking. From a footballing perspective, the logic is easy to see. Rangers have been bullied at times this season, particularly away from home, and the Scottish Premiership does not offer many soft afternoons. You need legs, power, and players who relish contact. Ecua is well over 6 feet tall, left-footed, comfortable sitting in front of the defense, and capable of dropping in as a centre-back when required. That versatility is valuable, especially for a manager who has had to patch things together and squeeze every ounce out of what is available. He has played his football in England, he has trained at big clubs, and he knows the demands of fast, physical matches where there is little time on the ball. That alone reduces the risk compared to bringing in someone completely unfamiliar with this environment. Age is another factor that works in Rangers' favour here. At 23 years old, he is not a project for the distant future, but he is young enough to improve, to be coached, and to potentially increase in value if things click. His career so far shows a mix of experiences, loans, development squads, first-team football, and the kind of ups and downs that toughen a player mentally. There are questions, of course, about sharpness after a period without competitive matches, and that cannot be ignored. Training every day is not the same as being in the thick of it on a Saturday with pressure coming from all angles, but that is where the staff would need to judge whether he can be brought up to speed without disrupting what is being built. All of this talk is happening against the backdrop of a massive domestic run that has quietly changed the mood around the club. Going into the weekend at Tynecastle, Rangers find themselves in a position that would have seemed unlikely not so long ago. Third place within touching distance and staring down a Hearts side sitting at the top. Being labelled underdogs feels strange for a club of this size, but there is an argument that it suits this group just now. The pressure has been dialed back slightly, expectations are more measured, and that can free players to perform without fear. Make no mistake, 3 points are essential if this season is going to be about more than damage limitation, but the way that message is delivered matters. The league form since the managerial change has been solid, and that is putting it mildly. Unbeaten across 8 matches, taking 20 points from a possible 24, scoring 15 times and conceding only 4 goals, paints a picture of stability returning. Clean sheets have become more frequent, and while there are still moments that make you wince, the chaos that defined earlier months has been reduced. Rangers are no longer gifting chances with reckless abandon, and there is a sense of structure that had been missing. It has not been perfect, far from it, but perfection was never realistic with this squad. What stands out most is the attitude. Watching the team now, there is a willingness to run, to compete, and to scrap for second balls that simply was not there before. Players look like they believe again, and that is often the first sign that a dressing room is responding to its manager, and you can see it in the tackles, in the way heads do not drop after a mistake, and in the reaction at full time. This is not a side bursting with elite quality. Everyone knows that, but it is a side that looks organized and committed, and that counts for a lot in this league. The improvement defensively deserves credit, even if it is still a work in progress. Rangers have relied on big interventions at times, whether from the goalkeeper or from last-ditch defending, but those moments are part of football. The key difference is that they are no longer happening every 5 minutes. Games feel more controlled, and the midfield screen has improved, which circles back neatly to why someone like Ecua is even being discussed. Add a natural ball winner with presence, and suddenly the whole team benefits. From the defenders behind him to the attackers who get a bit more freedom ahead, there is also a broader sense that lessons have been learned higher up the club. The talk around backing the manager properly in January has been welcomed, because too often in the past, promises have not matched reality. If Rangers are serious about sustaining this domestic push and closing the gap at the top, reinforcements are not optional, they are essential. That does not mean throwing money around recklessly, but it does mean identifying the right profiles and acting decisively when opportunities arise. Sunday will tell its own story, and it will be a proper test of how far this group has come. Tynecastle is never an easy place to go, especially against a Hearts side full of confidence, but Rangers head there with momentum and a clearer identity than they have had for months. The manager's comments about the game not defining the title race feel deliberate, a way to protect his players from being crushed by expectation. And that kind of man management has been noticeable throughout this run. Whether it pays off remains to be seen, but for the first time in a while, there is a sense that Rangers are moving with purpose rather than reacting to problems as they explode. What has perhaps gone slightly under the radar is how much of this recent upturn has been about simplicity and clarity rather than any radical tactical revolution. Rangers are not suddenly reinventing football. They are doing the basics better, defending their box with more conviction, pressing in more coordinated moments, and moving the ball forward with intent instead of hesitation. That might sound obvious, but after a period where everything felt muddled and uncertain, that clarity has been refreshing. Players know their jobs, they know what is expected of them, and that alone can lift performance levels across the pitch. When you look at the run of league results in detail, you see a pattern of resilience that had been sorely lacking. Narrow wins, controlled performances, and even the draws, while frustrating, did not feel like collapses. They felt like games Rangers could have won but did not quite finish off, which is a very different conversation from games that were spiraling out of control. Conceding only 4 goals across 8 matches tells its own story. especially given how porous the side looked earlier in the campaign. Clean sheets breed confidence, and confidence changes behavior. Defenders step out more assertively, midfielders track runners with purpose, and attackers press, knowing there is some security behind them. This is where the discussion around recruitment becomes so important, because the current run has been achieved with a squad that most supporters would still describe as incomplete. There is an understanding that the manager is working with what he has, managing minutes, rotating where possible, and squeezing every drop out of certain players who are being asked to carry a heavy load that is not sustainable across a full season, particularly with domestic and European commitments. And that is why January feels pivotal, not as a magic fix, but as a chance to reinforce the foundations that are finally starting to look solid. The emphasis on physicality in the players being linked is not accidental. Scottish football demands it, especially in the winter months when pitches cut up and matches become battles as much as contests of skill. Rangers have been second best physically too often in recent seasons, losing duels, being pushed off the ball, and struggling to impose themselves away from home. Bringing in players who enjoy that side of the game sends a message, not just to opponents, but to the dressing room. And it says that the club understands what is required and is prepared to address it head on. That does not mean abandoning technical quality, but rather complementing it. The modern game, even at the highest level, is moving towards athletes who can play rather than artists who cannot run. You only have to look at how teams dominate midfield areas now, with tall, powerful players who can press, tackle, and still distribute effectively. Rangers have lacked that balance, often fielding midfields that were either too lightweight or too limited on the ball. Finding the right mix is the challenge, and it is one the recruitment team cannot afford to get wrong again. There is also a psychological element to what is happening just now. Supporters can sense when a team is fighting, even if the football is not always fluent, and that connection matters. Ibrox responds to effort, to commitment, to players who leave everything on the pitch. That relationship had been badly strained, with frustration turning to apathy at times, but the recent run has started to rebuild trust. You can hear it in the noise, feel it in the atmosphere, and see it in the patience shown during difficult moments in games. The manager deserves credit for restoring that link, because it is not something that can be forced. It comes from honesty, from setting standards, and from holding players accountable. There have been individuals who have improved noticeably under this regime, players who looked lost before and now look like they at least belong at this level. That does not suddenly make them top class, but it makes the team functional, and functionality is the starting point for any successful side. Of course, there are still weaknesses, and nobody is pretending otherwise. Depth is an issue, creativity can dry up, and there are positions that clearly need upgrading if Rangers are to genuinely challenge across a full season. But the difference now is that these problems feel identifiable and solvable rather than overwhelming. The chaos has been replaced by structure, and once you have structure, recruitment becomes easier because you know what you are looking for. As the Hearts game approaches, there is a sense of opportunity rather than fear. Tynecastle will be hostile, the opposition will be confident, and Rangers will need to be at their best to come away with anything. But there is belief now that they can compete, that they can match intensity, and that they will not crumble if things do not go their way early on. That mental toughness has been missing, and its return could prove just as important as any signing. Looking beyond the weekend, the wider picture is one of cautious optimism. Rangers are not suddenly favourites for anything, and talk of title races should be tempered with realism, but momentum is a powerful thing in football. Close the gap further, keep the unbeaten run going, and suddenly the pressure shifts elsewhere. That is when experience, physicality, and squad depth start to matter most, and that is why the decisions made in the coming weeks will shape how this season is remembered. For now, the focus remains on performances, on grinding out results, and on continuing to build a team that looks willing to fight for every inch. The improvement may not be spectacular, but it is tangible, and after what has gone before, that feels significant. The challenge is maintaining it, strengthening it, and ensuring that this period is not just a brief upswing, but the foundation for something more durable as the campaign moves forward. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to get all the exclusive news about Rangers FC. Don't overlook any details about your beloved team. It's crucial for Rangers FC fans. Whispers have been growing round Ibrox that Nicholas Raskin's time in a Rangers shirt may be edging towards its final chapter. Nothing has been signed, nothing has been announced, yet the feeling among supporters and observers alike is that something is stirring beneath the surface. In football, silence can often speak louder than statements, and the quiet around Raskin has become hard to ignore. Those close to the club suggest that conversations are taking place behind closed doors, the sort that usually precede a shift in direction. Raskin arrived with promise, energy, and the kind of bite in midfield that Scottish football demands. When at his best, he brought tempo and edge, snapping into challenges and driving the ball forward with purpose. Such traits rarely go unnoticed, and it is believed that interest from elsewhere has been steadily building. There's a sense that Rangers themselves may be weighing up their options. The club has ambitions that stretch beyond domestic battles, and decisions are often made with an eye on balance sheets as much as balance in midfield. Should a suitable proposal land on the table, it may be viewed as an opportunity rather than a setback. In that context, Raskin's departure would not necessarily signal weakness, but a calculated move in a wider, rebuilding picture around the training ground. The mood is said to be professional, yet slightly reflective. Teammates understand how quickly football moves on, and Raskin is no different. He has spoken before about testing himself at the highest level, and a change of scenery could offer exactly that. Whether it is a league abroad or a new challenge closer to home, speculation continues to swirl. For now, Rangers fans are left reading between the lines, scanning performances and body language for clues. Until clarity arrives, Raskin's future remains one of the most talked about uncertainties at Ibrox. A reminder that in football, today's key figure can quietly become tomorrow's fond memory. Greetings, fans. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as it's greatly appreciated by Rangers FC. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments section below. Until the next video, stay tuned